are live from Warsaw. My name is Rachel Naomi KUDO, and I'm so excited to be hosting Chopin Talk this year for the 2025 Chopin Piano Competition. I'm joined by two very esteemed co-hosts of mine, Jed DISTLER and Ben LAUDE, and we have our first three guests, three organizers from the competition from the Chopin Institute, ALEKSANDER Laskowski, JOANNA Bokszczanin, thank you, and ARTUR Szklener, Director. Thank you so much for having us, and we are so thrilled to be here on the first day of the long-awaited Chopin and Piano Competition. JOANNA, can you tell us what it took for us to finally be here on the first day? I mean, when did this process start? We were talking before how about Chopin never sleeps. You're already actually thinking about 2030.
Yes, that's right. Yes, selecting the best pianist with the winner of this competition is a very long and multi-stage process. And it starts usually 1 year before the main stage, October stage of the competition, when we open the application process. This year, we we have the record number of applications, 642 from yes, that's right, from 54 countries. So huge number of pianists, great pianists from around the world applied for this competition. The qualifying committee, who has the task to choose the group of around 160 pianists, had very difficult task this time because they had to evaluate more than 260 hours of music, because the pianist had to attach to the application the DVD recording, and this recording is evaluated by the qualifying committee. So this committee worked on very huge time pressure because they had to around 1.5 months for this process. Finally, the qualifying committee accepted to the next stage of the competition, the preliminary round, 164 pianists. 171 pianists, yes. But for the preliminary round, which was organized in Warsaw, came finally 164. So the pianists who arrived to Warsaw, they had to perform short half-hour recitals in front of the audience and the jury gathered in Warsaw Philharmonic Chamber Hall. And from this group, the jury selected to the next main stage of the competition 85 pianists. I have to also mention about that not only the pianists from the group performing preliminary round is from in this group of finalists of the competition, but also the pianists who took advantage of the simplifying qualification process, which is mentioned in the rules of the competition. This year we had a very big number of these pianists, 19. These are prize winners, the first and the second prize winners of the most prestigious competition on the world. And as I said, this is very big number, 19 pianists from this group. So all of them we will have the opportunity to listen to during these auditions.
I'm very curious, Artur, you're the director of the competition, and we're in the first round. I'd love to ask you about some of the repertoire changes in this year's competition. I remember in 2021, we heard a few more waltzes in the first round, a couple of different etudes. Can you talk about the decision to actually narrow those selection criteria for the participants?
Yeah, actually, I've got to say that our main purpose was to answer one of the most important questions about this competition. Are we just selecting the best pianist, or are we trying to find the best Chopin interpreter? And obviously the answer is the second, and we try to think about how to help both the pianists, the participants, and also the jury members, focusing on the features that we think that are the most specific for the Chopin style. And we thought about doing that from the very first second of each of the recitals. Sorry. So that was the first idea, that we should have a dance, because if you think about the very specific Chopin features, you've got in the first round, you've got a cantilena, very slow piece, so it's a nocturne usually. You've got an etude, but etude today is not to prove that somebody is a good pianist. Today an etude is just a kind of interpretation showing that the pianist can perform and actually create a kind of a very small, tiny poem on a Chopin etude. And also the big piece, the big form that is important from the very beginning, so ballade, we kept it. But still thinking about what is missing in the first round, we thought about the dance. So that was that's why we've got the waltz obligatory in the first round. But then we had a sequence of some other changes, because when you move one piece, you've got some other possibilities. And what was very important for me and my colleagues since actually very beginning when we were working with the Chopin competition, so 2005, we thought that absolutely crucial for Chopin work is a cycle of preludes, so preludes opus 28. So in 2015, we allowed playing opus 28 in exchange to the sonata. And that was a bit risky, because a cycle of preludes is great, is fantastic. The pianist can show actually most of the pianistic possibilities, but at the same time, such pianists lack the possibility of showing the full movement, big form that is very mature, classical, related, and so on and so forth. So some of the pianists were choosing actually to play both, because they were playing sonata in the third round, but the preludes in the third round, but the sonata as a free form in the second round. So we thought that we should allow actually in a program these two big forms. So in the second round, the whole cycle of preludes can be played. It's even written explicitly in the program. The participants they have to perform 6 preludes, but they can play 24 if they build the program this way. And sonata is obligatory, as it was for many decades before in the third round. And probably the biggest change that will be seen on the scene is in finals, because we've added Polonaise Fantasy to the finals, and it was also an effect of a very long discussion. We started from the question how to improve the finals of the Chopin competition, because it's a kind of a trend, because finals are always very difficult, and we want to make them even more difficult. But the third argument was actually that Chopin wrote only 2 concertos that are kept in a Briand style. That is very early for his stylistic features of his music. So we thought to have something opposite. We thought to have some big, mature, late form. And we thought that Polonaise Fantasy is the best candidate. And it's got even one more feature that makes it quite, I think, good for this purpose, because it's very improvisatory. The improvisatory element is very important there. So the pianists, I hope, they can treat it as a kind of a prelude to the concerto.
Will we ever hear the cello sonata at the Chopin competition?
The cello sonata is obviously one of the possibilities, but it's a chamber music that would add some totally different approach to the competitions.
Maybe
artists,
2030.
Yeah, maybe
considering.
You never know.
So we were not so brave, but I think that these changes are quite important anyway.
I think so. Well, I think these are all wonderful and interesting changes. But Alec, I want to ask you something. You know, the two of us started talking about my participation in the Chopin talk back in January 2024. This is almost 2 years ago when remember we had the long Zoom meeting. And so it's obvious that the preparations and the publicity and all of these moving parts are starting so early on. And so how is all of the press organized, and how do you do it? What is the process? Because it seems like it's been a long journey about, you know, what to do, you know, what to present, and in what order.
Well, thank you, Jed. Thank you all for being here, actually. We are very proud to have you. You know, in general, we think our ambition, and I'm not saying that on behalf of the Chopin Institute, I'm saying that on behalf of the city of Warsaw and our country, Poland, is to be the piano capital of the world. And the Chopin competition is just the perfect opportunity to attract attention and entice important people to come here, like you, Rachel, like you, Ben, like you, Jed, and many other journalists. Of course, we do press conferences around the world, starting from Tokyo, and in many other areas we have our good connections, we advertise online, and there is, I have to humbly say, so much interest from top people in the field, but also people who are new to classical music, but want to take part in this beautiful celebration of talent that the Chopin competition is, that we've run out of press tickets very quickly, so I have to be very inventive to let everyone in, at least for some time. And I actually have a hotline with all our journalists, because if anyone's ill, if anyone's not feeling well, and they free a ticket, I want it back, because there's a long line waiting for it. Professionals, I'm not saying I'm saying that about the audience. You know,
It's the hottest ticket in Poland.
I would say not only in Poland, actually.
And you're all
Just remember, we sold out the competition in a matter of minutes, and there was a queue standing all night in front of the Chopin Museum to get the tickets. And we had, I think, the most respected members of the line coming from Australia, Japanese people who flew in just to make sure they got the tickets.
Yes, has this happened before, this kind of long queue? It seems kind of unprecedented.
Yes,
but
yes, that's, I would say, a wonderful tradition of the Chopin competition. But since we are more and more global, and there's more and more viewers also watching us now, but in different media as well, I think it's also a bit easier to travel. And if we compare to 2021, we had COVID limitations.
Right.
So now it's what you call revenge traveling. People really wanted the tickets because some of them couldn't come here in 2021, but also the competition is growing in prestige, and I think the way it is attractive.
Well, I think one factor into that is the making the competition available on YouTube, and also many of the past performances in very recent years being available on the recordings that the Chopin Institute
and in
is
very
bringing
good quality.
out. And indeed in very good quality, and from many years. And it's been really fascinating because, you know, you have sent me files over the years, you know, of different performances, and it really adds a lot to the perception of, you know, how the competition has evolved and how performances have evolved.
Well, the idea is to make it modern, but that it has to remain traditional in a way. It's a bit of a paradox, because if you look back at the first competition, now we are almost 100 years old. But if you go back to 1927, it was just the Philharmonic Hall, the piano, the jury, and the audience. And it's still the essence of the competition. But the first was broadcast on the radio. Now we are in all the media available, so we have to speak the language of the young generation.
Exactly.
And you know, for an art form to thrive, to attract talent, it has to be attractive. And if you ask the participants, and I'm sure you will, many of them actually applied to the competition. Many of them actually devoted their lives to the piano and Chopin. because a dream was born when they were watching the previous editions.
Yes.
So we are very happy about it.
I'll concord because I watched on VHS recorded, but
Well, you see.
I didn't have YouTube then, but I think it's inspiring so many young people. And we're thinking like 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds now might be here in 5 years.
Well,
It's
it does
amazing.
feels like in 2010 the lights turned on a little bit with just the quality and the international
think so.
broadcast and just the sort of did something change that year in terms of having YouTube live streams, for example?
I think it was a brave step because at the time YouTube was this new unknown internet zone, and Arthur was very brave to say, yes, let's do it, because it was very much his idea to go online, and I think we never looked back really,
No.
You know, actually, we started in 2010 when YouTube didn't allow us live broadcasting. So we were probably one of the first classical music events in the world who broadcasted live on our own website. We had a partner, the video partner, that was broadcasting it worldwide. And I remember that because technology was totally different, and there were some bottlenecks between, especially between Asia and Europe. So we had to, throughout the competition, we had to limit the quality, the video quality, just to reach the number of people who were interested in it. So it was really fascinating. We felt like a kind of pioneers on this field. And it really worked. I remember that discussion if YouTube is a good place, because YouTube is just a kind of a place where everything is available, no matter what quality. So we were asking ourselves if it is good, and my colleagues, especially from promotion, were so dedicated that our mission should be not asking about the quality, but asking about the audiences and opening to the new audiences.
And I feel, I'm sorry, but I feel that the purpose is that this really creates community and reinforces the community, because this is really a great community of pianists and everybody gathering together and hearing each other and exchanging ideas and learning.
I would even use the word family. We believe that all the participants of the past editions create a huge extended Chopin family, and we gather more and more people around us, and that makes us really very happy. I'm sure you'll agree with that.
That's absolutely fantastic, because from the very first day when we opened to the world, there were people coming, and most of them are still with us. So these dozens of thousands of people now, or hundreds of thousands, are because just people are more and more people come. Almost nobody wants to leave us. You know how important message it is in that actual process, that classical music is valuable for new generations, and no matter what language we speak, actually, the messages on YouTube, they are just rolling, and people are happy together. I think that's what Alexander says. We feel like being in a big family. That is really absolutely fascinating.
I'm sorry, go
Very
ahead.
selfishly, if you have a chance to dig up more archive video from 2005, Raphael Blechach and Yundi Lee in 2000, I'd love to see more from them on YouTube. I don't know if it exists, but as somebody who spends a lot of time, thank you for the permission, borrowing some of those 2010, 2015 broadcasts. It's just remarkable to see this history up close in detail. I don't know if any of that archive material exists, but I'd love to hear more of it.
Yes, it does, but there are some copyright issues.
I can imagine.
Yes, I also noticed that you have as guests previous winners, and that was especially revealed in that wonderful concert last night, having 4 of the laureates playing the Bach concerto for 4 keyboards. I mean, where else are you going to find that? It was just quite an interesting concert, and also the repertoire, how it was interesting how all of the composers, have gotten things from Chopin. Oh wait, Bach?
Bach learned a lot from
He was most
Bach did
inspired.
learn a lot from, I thought so.
I like that it was, 5 decades of gold medalists last night, all in the same stage.
Just to give you a brief comment, look at the jury of the competition. It's also the Chopin competition family. That's where you get so many laureates of the competition because it's a sort of self-perpetuating tradition.
Yeah.
These are the guardians of that tradition, but at the same time people who develop the tradition, who contribute to it.
Well, we have to thank all three of you. Thank you. We know you're so busy. It was wonderful to be in this opening day together. Thank you for including us in your family. We're very honored.
Yes.
You're
And
part
to
of the
everybody
family.
watching on YouTube as well, you're part of our family, and we are very, very grateful again for this wonderful opportunity to be here together and to celebrate, most important, Chopin's music that brings us together. And we hope you will enjoy the rest of the morning session of the first round. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.